The first thing they noticed was the photograph, not the cabin, not the snow, not the impossible fact that the four people standing in the picture looked exactly the same as they did 26 years ago. The photograph came first, and that was what made the discovery impossible. The Rocky Mountains have a way of making people disappear. Not dramatically, not like in the movies. Most people imagine missing hikers being swallowed by avalanches or falling from cliffs. But the mountains do not need to kill you. They only need you to forget where you are. A wrong turn, a hidden trail, a storm that arrives 30 minutes earlier than predicted, a fog so thick you can't see 10 feet ahead. The wilderness does not hate people, it simply does not care. And in October of 2024, 4 experienced hikers learned that some places in the mountains were never meant to be found. Ethan Cole checked the GPS screen again. The device showed a blinking blue dot. Then it froze. Then it restarted. Then it showed the same message, no signal. He sighed. "You're kidding me." Behind him, Sarah Miller adjusted the straps of her backpack. Still nothing? Ethan looked back. The expression on his face answered before his words did. No. Sarah looked up at the mountains surrounding them. The Rocky Mountains stretched endlessly in every direction. Dark pine forests, jagged peaks, white clouds moving slowly between the valleys. Beautiful, ancient, silent. "We were supposed to hit the trail marker 3 hours ago," she said. "I know. You said you knew this area." Ethan smiled slightly. "I said I knew the general area." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's not the same thing." "No." He looked at the trees ahead. "And that's becoming a problem." They weren't amateurs. That was important. Ethan wasn't some tourist who decided hiking sounded fun after watching a few adventure videos online. He had spent 12 years exploring Colorado trails. He knew weather patterns. He knew survival basics. He knew how quickly the mountains could turn dangerous. Sarah was a former paramedic. She had worked emergency response for years before leaving the field. Daniel Brooks was a wildlife photographer who had documented areas of Colorado most people never saw. And Michael Reeves was the oldest of the group, a retired park ranger, 40 years in the wilderness. If anyone could survive getting lost, it was them. Which is exactly why what happened next bothered them, because none of them could explain how they got there. The storm arrived at 4:17 p.m., almost out of nowhere. One moment the sky was clear. The next, dark clouds rolled over the peaks like smoke. Temperature dropped. Wind accelerated. Snow started falling, not lightly, violently. "We need shelter," Michael said. Everyone stopped joking, because Michael never said things like that unless he meant them. They pushed forward. The trail disappeared beneath snow. Their footprints vanished behind them within seconds. The forest became a wall of darkness. Every direction looked identical. Trees, snow, rock, silence. Then Ethan saw something, a shape between the trees. At first he thought it was another person, a hiker, someone else who got caught in the storm. Then the wind shifted and he saw it, a cabin. It sat alone in a clearing, old, wooden, almost swallowed by the forest. The roof was covered in snow. The windows were dark. No smoke from the chimney. No lights. No signs anyone had been there years. But it was standing. And in that moment, it looked like the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Shelter, warmth, safety. Michael stared at it. His expression changed. "What?" Sarah noticed immediately. "You know this place?" Michael didn't answer. He walked closer, slowly, like he was approaching something dangerous. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Michael looked at the cabin. I've never seen it before. Then why do you look scared? The old ranger swallowed. Because cabins don't appear in places where they shouldn't be. The front door was unlocked. That should have bothered them, but freezing temperatures change priorities. They entered. The cabin was warm. Not warm like a heated building. Warm like someone had been there moments ago. A fire burned in the fireplace, fresh wood stacked beside it. A kettle sat on the stove, steam rising. Everyone froze. Nobody spoke, because they all understood the same thing. Someone was here. Hello? Ethan's voice echoed. No answer. Michael stepped deeper inside. The cabin was small. One room, a kitchen, a fireplace, a wooden table, 4 chairs, a staircase leading upstairs. On the wall hung photographs, old photographs, black and white, families, hikers, people standing outside the cabin. Sarah walked closer. They're all the same place. Michael looked. Every picture showed the cabin. Different years, different people, but always the same cabin. Daniel lifted one photograph from the wall. Guys, his voice was different. Everyone turned. He held the picture in his hand. A photograph, dated October 14th, 1998. 4 hikers standing outside the cabin, smiling, happy, alive. Sarah looked closer, and then her face changed, because she recognized them. She dropped the photo. No. Ethan picked it up. His blood went cold. The people in the picture were impossible. 4 hikers, same faces, same clothes, same backpacks, same scars, same everything, standing outside the cabin 26 years earlier. The photograph showed Ethan, Sarah, Daniel, Michael, exactly as they were now. Nobody spoke for almost a minute. The only sound was the fire, crackling, slowly, like the cabin was breathing. Finally, Michael whispered, "That can't be right." Sarah stared at him. "What does that mean?" The old ranger didn't answer. He looked toward the windows at the endless forest outside, then back at the photograph. "I've heard stories." Ethan frowned. "Stories about what?" Michael looked uncomfortable. "The disappearances." Years ago, before he retired, Michael had worked search and rescue. He had seen strange things, people who vanished, people who were found days later, miles away, with no memory of where they had been. But there was one case, one story nobody could explain. A group of 4 hikers disappeared in 1998. The search lasted 3 weeks. No bodies, no equipment, nothing. The official explanation was exposure. They assumed the hikers became lost during a storm. But Michael remembered something. The final report contained one strange detail. A photograph found near the search area. A photograph of the missing hikers standing outside an unknown cabin. Sarah stared at him. "You never told anyone?" Michael looked down. "Nobody would have believed me." Ethan walked toward the stairs. "Okay." Everyone looked at him. He looked back. "We need to figure out where we are." He pointed upward. "Maybe there's a radio." Maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't. But none of them wanted to stay downstairs staring at a picture of themselves that shouldn't exist. The second floor had 4 bedrooms. That was strange, because the cabin was tiny. A cabin this size shouldn't have 4 bedrooms. Each room contained a bed. Each bed had personal belongings. Sarah entered the first room. A backpack sat on the floor. She opened it. Inside were her things. Her journal, her old medical ID, a necklace her mother gave her, the exact same necklace around her neck.
She stepped back. "No." Ethan heard her. "What?" She pointed. "This is mine." Nobody moved, because they all knew what she meant. Not similar, not identical. It was hers. The same scratches, the same worn pages, the same handwriting. Daniel checked another room. Inside was his camera, the exact camera he had lost 5 years earlier. Michael found an old ranger badge, his badge, from 1998. The cabin wasn't showing them strangers, it was showing them themselves. That night they made a decision. They would leave at sunrise. They would not investigate, they would not search, they would not ask questions. They would simply leave, because whatever this place was, it was not normal.
Ethan did not scream. That was the first thing he noticed. Later, when he tried to remember that moment, he expected himself to panic, to run, to shout for Sarah, to do something human. But fear does something strange when it becomes too large. It doesn't always make you react. Sometimes it freezes you. Sometimes it makes you watch. And Ethan Cole watched himself standing at the end of the hallway. The same face, the same eyes, the same scar above the eyebrow from a mountain bike accident when he was 16, except older. The man looked like Ethan after decades of exhaustion, like someone who had spent years waiting for something that never came. The stranger spoke again. "Do not go outside." Ethan couldn't move. "Who are you?" The man looked down. A painful expression crossed his face. "You already know." The hallway lights flickered, except there were no lights, only moonlight through the windows. The cabin seemed to breathe around them. The old wooden walls creaked. The stranger stepped closer. Ethan stepped back. "Stay away from me." The older version of himself stopped, his eyes filled with something Ethan didn't expect. Sadness. Not anger, not threat. Sadness. "I said the same thing." "What?" "When I first saw you." A cold feeling moved through Ethan. "First saw me." The older man looked toward the staircase. "You're going to hear them in the morning." "Who?" The man's voice dropped. "The others." The fire suddenly exploded downstairs, a loud crack. Ethan looked away for half a second. When he looked back, the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no door opening, nothing. Only the sound of the wind outside. "Ethan!" Sarah's voice. He turned. She stood behind him. Her face was pale. "You saw him too?" It wasn't a question. Ethan stared at her. "What did you see?" Sarah looked toward the empty hallway. "Myself." The words hung between them. Neither of them spoke, because saying it out loud made it real. They woke Daniel and Michael. Neither man reacted with disbelief. That was the terrifying part, because both of them had seen something. Daniel had found his old camera sitting on the floor beside his bed, the same camera he lost during a hiking trip in 2017, except there was a new photograph on the memory card, a photograph taken 3 hours earlier, inside the cabin, the 4 of them sleeping. Michael had found a journal, his journal, the one he kept during his first year as a park ranger, except the final pages were written in handwriting that looked exactly like his, but he hadn't written them. The final sentence said, "The cabin does not trap people, it keeps them." Morning arrived without sunlight. The storm continued, but something had changed. The snow had stopped. The wind had stopped. The forest outside was completely still. too still, like a photograph. Ethan looked out the window. We leave now. Nobody argued. They packed quickly. Nobody wanted to spend another second inside. The door opened easily. Cold air rushed in. For a moment, they felt relief. They stepped outside. And then Michael stopped. The cabin was gone. Behind them was not an empty space, not trees, not snow, nothing, just forest. No footprints, no door, no cabin. Sarah turned around slowly. Her voice barely worked. Where did it go? Nobody answered, because the answer was impossible. The cabin had not disappeared. The cabin had never been there. Then Daniel noticed something. A trail marker, half buried in snow. He walked closer. A rusted metal sign. The words were barely visible, but they could read them. Route 12, closed, 1998. Daniel looked confused. 1998? Michael approached. His face changed because he recognized the marker. This trail was closed after the disappearance. What disappearance? Ethan asked. Michael didn't answer because something moved behind them. A voice, a human voice. You're finally awake. They turned. 4 people stood between the trees. 3 men, 1 woman, all wearing hiking gear. Old hiking gear, the kind people wore in the late 90s. The woman smiled, and Ethan felt his stomach drop, because he knew her, not personally, but from the photograph. The woman standing in front of them was one of the hikers from 1998, the missing hikers. Michael whispered, "No." The woman looked at him. "You remember us?" The scene became silent. The 4 strangers walked closer. The oldest man among them smiled. "We've been waiting." Ethan stepped forward. "Who are you?" The man looked confused, then laughed softly. "That's funny." He pointed behind them. "You're asking us?" He looked at the 4 hikers. "You're the ones who were missing." Nobody understood. The man continued. "You came here in 1998. Ethan shook his head. "No." "You found the cabin." "No." "You stayed." "No." The man looked at him with pity. "That's what everyone says at first." Sarah stepped forward. "Who are you?" Emily answered. "My name is Emily." She looked at the cabin, although there was no cabin. "Me, Jake, Tom, and Rachel found this place 26 years ago." Daniel stared. "You're saying you've been here since 1998? Emily nodded. "We thought we were trapped." A pause. Then we realized something. The wind moved through the trees. The cabin wasn't holding us. She looked directly at Ethan. It was protecting us. Ethan felt anger rise. "Protecting you?" He laughed. "You disappeared for 26 years." Emily looked sad. "No," she pointed at him. "You did." A silence. A terrible silence. Michael slowly turned toward Ethan. "What does that mean?" Emily looked at all 4 of them. "You don't remember, because the cabin takes the memories first." Sarah whispered. "What memories?" Emily answered. "The first time you died." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Daniel laughed. A nervous laugh. "This is insane." Emily looked at him. "I know." She walked closer.
That was my reaction too, until the avalanche. The ground shook, not physically, something deeper, like a memory being unlocked. Ethan suddenly saw something. Snow, darkness, a scream, the four of them running, the cabin, an avalanche, then nothing. He grabbed his head. No. Sarah caught him. Ethan? He looked at her. His eyes were filled with fear. I remember. Everyone looked at him. I remember the storm. Michael went pale. Keep going. Ethan's breathing became faster. We didn't find the cabin. A pause. We ran into it. He looked toward the empty forest. We were escaping something. What? Ethan whispered. The mountain. Emily nodded. Now you remember. The forest changed. The snow beneath their feet began to melt. Not slowly, instantly. Winter became autumn. The trees changed color. The air warmed. The impossible happened. Time moved backwards. And then Ethan saw the cabin. Again, but different. New, fresh wood. Smoke from the chimney. Lights glowing. The cabin from 1998. Standing exactly where it had always been. Emily whispered, "Welcome back."